and then I was shown another life, and then I was shown where I reside when I'm not in a body. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And I'm not a regular human. It's not. It's it's quite a unique place. And I was shown how time is very different there. Like 20 minutes of time there is 80 years, a lifetime here. So we come here for a lifetime. It has the feel of 20 minutes. So that's why we always can, we go, okay, well, it's only 20 minutes. Why wouldn't I jump back in for another life? But very quickly you discover, as soon as you kind of go down that tube back into create, you're like, oh, it's another 80 years. I'm gonna have to learn how to walk and talk and do all that again. But I was shown all that. Yeah, I was shown how it works on the other side.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and another incredible guest here today. The hits keep on coming. I want to welcome to the podcast Gareth Duignam, a conscious teacher, spiritual teacher, author, all things awareness. Welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Hi, Sam. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me on your amazing show.
I'm just really, really excited. I love conversations like the one we're going to have today, just getting deeper into the nature of reality. So I would love you to start with just a little backstory with yourself leading up to this very moment.
So, I mean, I guess I'm going to have to go way back to around 2004. Found that my life wasn't going to plan, or I just seemed to be, not very happy in life compared to other people. And kind of noticed that I didn't fit in. This was a big thing. Like I would look around and I would see that everybody else seems to be having a great time out there. They all get on together. They go out, and I'm over here kind of feeling that I'm somehow lost or alienated, and I just don't really understand my role here. So I found myself going out with a girl around 2005, and I was going on vacation, and I was on the plane, and I was bored, and she handed me a book, and she said, "Here, why don't you read this?" And I had it was a yellow book with a big heart on it, and I thought, oh, what's this? And it was a book by Louise Hay called "You Can Heal Your Life," and I was kind of even a little bit embarrassed taking the book from her and reading it, in case anyone's seen me. And all of a sudden, there was all these concepts of how we choose our parents, how we come here to learn, how our thoughts, how our internal dialogue, basically maps out our lives for us. And I was like, wow, I was like, okay, this is new, but I'm open-minded. And I said, okay, I'll try some of these exercises. So immediately I started working on myself. I started doing affirmations, inner child work. And within weeks, I started to notice that my reality was changing, and how I was changing. And then in turn, the people around me were, different to how I was. So I knew straight away that there was something to this, and I continued doing it. I then went into Dublin city centre on my way home from my vacation, and I started looking for more spiritual books. I found a big bookstore, started buying any spiritual books I could, got home and just started going at it, right? Anything I could find. Started meditating. On my very first meditation, I had an aha, like all of a sudden, boom, I was gone. My mind was gone, my ego was gone, my body was gone. I was just awareness, totally free. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, the mind had come back in, and it was like, what's this? I've done it. I've meditated. And obviously then I was out of meditation. And I think that was kind of what I would say was almost like consciousness using the carrot on a stick. It gave me a kind of a peak experience straight away. So it got me interested. And it just I wanted to get back there. So I started a regular meditation practice, kept working on myself. And then I found myself becoming really involved with manifestation. So part of Louise Hay's books was all about how affirmations can change your reality. So I started doing this. I started manifesting. I manifested a company for myself, a better job, more finances. And I was like, there's definitely something to this. Now, you're also looking at somebody who was a complete non-believer, not religious in any way. I was convinced I was just a body that was born and will die. So all of a sudden, I was now convinced that there was something, an intelligence in the universe, that when I sent out, a request, it was answering. So I was like, okay, there's something to this. So the new job came along. I manifested a business for myself. I manifested a house for myself. All of these things came along, but I kind of got to I just kind of got to the end of it. I was like, well, okay, where do I go now? What's the next thing? So I kind of lost interest in the manifestation thing. I kept meditating, always kept my meditation practice up. And then a number of years later, I came across a book by Brian Wise, Many Lives, Many Masters. And he was talking all about these past lives and lives in between lives. And I was fascinated by this because I also had a fear of dying. I was convinced, like when we die, that's the end of us. And I was like, wow, wouldn't that be great if I could have that experience of being regressed into a past life, seeing a past life, then I'd know that life continues on. So I found actually a hypnotherapist who could do past life regression, went and I'd done a session with him and had some experience. Again, my mind kind of came in and was like, well, did I just make that up? Was it real? How much of it was kind of like suggestion by the hypnotherapist? And then a couple of weeks later, I was going through YouTube, and YouTube was fairly new at the time. It was around 2006, 2007. And I came across this gentleman named Bob Monroe. And I was like, oh, and he was talking about having out-of-body experiences. And I was like, okay, this guy, there was something about him. He was really warm, friendly, nice guy. And I was like, there's something to this man. I trust him. But I want to have this experience myself. He was talking about having out-of-body experience. So I went off and I bought his books, started reading them, and I bought every book I could find on the subject. And I started practicing and I'm practicing. And in the meantime, I had bought another book. It had came up in my on the Amazon suggestions. It was Tom Campbell's My Big Toe. And I had no clue what I was getting into with Tom's book. It was a very difficult read. So I kind of put that on the side, kept meditating, kept wanting to have these experiences, but I wasn't getting anywhere. There was nothing happening. My dreams were getting a little bit more vivid, a bit more lucid. So I decided to find Tom, and I came across him. I think he had 7 friends on Facebook at the time. And I reached out to him and I said, Tom, I said, look, I said, I bought your book. I've been watching your videos. I said, I really believe what you're saying is true. I said, but I want to have the experience. I said, is there anything you can do to help me? And next day he wrote back and he had a couple of suggestions. I mean, nothing concrete, go and read my form on my website. So I did. And 2 nights later, I woke up with vibrations running up and down my body in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh, this is what they were talking about. This is the vibrational state. And they started getting louder and louder. And the vibration started going from the tips of my toes all the way up to the top of my head. And all of a sudden, it built up to this sort of crescendo. And I felt 2 hands reach in, grab me underneath my arms, and pull me out of my body and fire me out through the ceiling, out through the roof of my house, out through the ceiling. And I was flying. I had left the body. So I eventually came down in a field. I thought, wow, I did it. And I looked at my hands and I was like, I'm out of my body. I did it. And then with the excitement, it felt like a big rubber band had snapped me back into my body. And I sat up and I went, I don't die. I know I don't die. I've been out of, I've been out of the body. So that was my first awakening. I mean, to know that I don't die, that was huge. I was different. A lot of fear had been, taken away in that having a direct experience, right? It wasn't just me reading about someone else's experience. I had it for myself. I knew it was real. It was more real than this reality. So that set me off. From that moment on, then I started consuming everything I could on out of body stuff, life between lives, Tom's work. For about a year and a half, then I started having spontaneous out of body experiences. They would come 2 or 3 times a week just by themselves. I would wake up, vibrations. I had a lot of amazing experiences, a lot of fun with it, but generally there wasn't an awful lot of spiritual progress coming. It was a lot of, my ego was having a great time. I was having a great story to tell people. And then what happened was they started to die down. And I then found myself being taken off into classrooms. I had an awful lot of one-to-one meetings in the non-physical with Tom. Tom seemed to be a teacher for me. I would sit like we're sitting now, talking, having conversations, eating salads. I would find myself in classroom scenarios. I would have situations arise where I would have to make decisions in them, big kind of lessons. That went on again then for another couple of years. Then all of a sudden the fear thing came back up again about dying, and I was brought into this sort of state where they let me experience what it was to die. So an intelligence, when I speak about them, it was just an intelligence would show up and it would say, okay, so we want to show you what it's like to die. And they were like, are you ready? And I was like, okay. And then they'd say, okay, now we're going to move through it. And it would just feel like I was moving from the waking state into the dreaming state or the sleeping state. And they're like, that's it. And I'd be like, oh, and then we were like, okay, we'll bring you back. I'd be like, okay. And then we go again, back through it. And they'd done that 4 or 5 times. And they were like, okay, easy. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, that's all there is to dying. I was like, okay. After that, I then developed an illness. An illness came along that lasted for about 2 or 3 years. And it kind of really stopped me. We were speaking previously, I was very much into fitness and bodybuilding from my early 20s. And a lot of my business had been built on my physique, and I had stores, and I sold nutritional products. And all of a sudden, this illness had stripped all of that away from me. Wasn't able to work out. I couldn't eat the food I was eating. Everything started to fall away. My physique basically just disappeared. Everything was being ripped from me, and I found it very difficult. I couldn't get out of bed. Went on and on and on. Eventually, I got to the bottom of it. I just started researching. I started working on myself, healing myself with different protocols, and I got on with life, right? I healed. I just kind of put the spiritual stuff on the back burner, concentrated on my business. I had 2 children. And then in 2016, I found myself back in the gym, and I walked into the gym one morning and I stopped and I kind of looked around, and I kind of had this weird feeling that I was being watched. I was like, something feels a bit strange. And there was loud music playing, and I could hear the weights clanking, and the sun was coming in through the window. I went, all of this isn't outside of me. I said, it's all going on inside of my consciousness. I said, the sounds aren't out there. I said, the sounds are inside of my head. I said, the sun is not outside. I said, the sun is in me. And as soon as I said that, it was almost like 2 pieces of Velcro were ripped inside my mind. I heard this rip like this. And then the only way I can describe it was God woke up. God became lucid in me and looked out through my eyes and knew that he had been dreaming himself into this character. And I was like, you know, all this supreme information started coming in. You know, I knew that what I was outside of creation, and it had dreamt itself into me, forgotten what it was, and had then become totally entangled with this illusion of Maya. And all the problems that I was having about my business and my health, it was just all part of a dream. Then I started to look around, and it started to dawn on me that I was this one being creating all of this. I was like, well, then I'm the wall, I'm the machines, I'm the noises, I'm all of this. And I then looked over in the corner and I seen this young guy, and he was lifting up his top, looking at his abs. And I was like, and I'm also him. And I said, here I am. I've just woken up in this one, but I'm still sleeping in the others, in that one. He's, you know, he's still dream walking. So it was like God. I had a like God realization experience. It became too much. Tears started flooding down my face. I had to sit down. It became overwhelming. I then just thought, okay, I have to go. I picked up my bag. I walked out of the gym, and I just had the most incredible drive into work. It was about an hour. I was in total bliss, still buzzing from whatever had happened. But a couple of hours later, the aperture started to close down. But the next day I woke up, I was different. I was now fully, the awakening of God realization had closed down. My nervous system just wasn't able to maintain that, but I was now fully abiding in self-realization. There was a freedom, an unbounded sense of peace, relief, that I wasn't my body, I wasn't my mind, I wasn't my feelings, my emotions. I was awareness, and awareness was completely awake to itself. So I had a lot of fun with that. Funny enough, I didn't tell anyone about it. I was like, wow, something has happened. This is incredible, but I didn't know what to say, or I didn't even feel the need to say it to anybody. So I was kind of like just walking around feeling this unbounded awareness at the center of what I was. Totally unique, totally new. It felt like an old tight shoe had been taken off. So for the next couple of weeks, I started going out on walks. And then all of a sudden, what I noticed was reality started to look pretty different. On the inside, everything was amazing, but now I was starting to look out and everything was popping. All the colors were vibrant. The sun was coming through the trees. I was seeing everything almost like it was like me. It was like, and I kind of felt like I was an alien, and I had been dropped here for the first time to experience this planet. And I was like, every step I took, you know, I'd go out on my walk, and I had done this walk a couple of hundred times, right? The same walk. But it was like every footstep was new. It was like I was exploring this reality for the first time. And that went on pretty much for about 2 years. After about 2 years, kind of oscillating in and out of this, what I now know is God realization. It's like when consciousness starts to see itself in the outside world, it's known as God realization. Something then caught my attention, which was Kundalini. So I was like, oh, Kundalini popping up in my news feed. Maybe I should start reading about this. Started reading about it. Came across a practice called Shaktipat. I was like, this was a spiritual transmission from a master to awaken the Kundalini life force. I was like, okay, maybe that's what I need to do. So I contacted a friend. And funny enough, my friend had also come across this same teacher who was coming to Ireland to do this retreat. And we both agreed to go. So we both set off a couple of weeks later to this Shaktipat intensive. And I got there, a couple of people met. It wasn't a big group, maybe 20, 30 people meditating. You would come up and sit beside the teacher. He would put his hands on your knees, or he would touch your hair. And there was something to it. I was like, wow, I feel different here. My meditation was deepening. But it wasn't until day 3 where it really kind of hit me. And I was like, geez, I can't even be in the room. The energy is that strong. It's like incredible. It was, I wouldn't, like, there was nothing going on like where I was having visions or anything, but it was just like this dense, heavy energy that sort of felt like it was just holding me there, and it was inside my brain, and it was making me, really feel different. The day after the retreat, I went home. It was a 3-day retreat. I went home and I got up the next day and I was like, I feel different. I don't know what's happened, but I feel different. I was touching like the car door. I was getting electrocuted. I noticed that I now had like weird bliss feelings in my hand and in my face. I was like, what's going on? So for the next 3 months, I entered states of bliss. I can only describe it as bliss. I don't know if anyone's ever taken MDMA. I had experimented with it when I was a teenager. I felt like I had taken MDMA, and it was there 24/7 for 3 months. I could not stop it. Even if I got up in the middle of the night, that bliss was there. It was in my face, it was in my eyes, it was in my hands, all over my body. Every time I would close my eyes, it would get stronger. I was like, I've won some sort of spiritual lottery, whatever's happened. And I got really, really into this. Should I keep going on, or is there anything you want to
Yeah,
ask me?
absolutely. I mean, there's
Keep going.
so many things to go down the path of these incredible epiphanies that people have, getting a taste of something that would be considered paranormal on the intuitive side of a realization of their self-evidence of something greater, which happens is the beginning of the seed for any Taoist seeker. This is out of the norm. This is unusual. I heard grandma. I saw apparition. I could see the future. I had a lucid dream. I'm feeling energy. These are all incredible seeds that spark this curiosity to take the Taoist seeker down a path of, well,
Yeah.
I want more. Like Oliver Twist. You want more, boy? May I have another, sir? Yeah, that kind of thing is really where you go, wow. And it sounds like, from everything, from your own admission, the fluidity of your epiphanies were consistent because of the absence of any type of like conscious resistance. Through your own admission, the beginning of your story today, sharing with us this, I'm open to new things. And I mean, that simplicity is truly the gateway to, potential, energetic potential, spiritual potential, conscious potential. And, many people start with that. I mean, my own admission would be the same. I just approach things childlike in my nature, meaning that I accept it at face value. I'm not looking for the intersection of the intellect and the intuitive to give me some type of like analysis of how this is happening. It's happening because I'm the experiencer. The experiential moment is now, and it is real. And I feel like through what you've gone through, what I've experienced, these are examples today that are far more valid and potent for a seeker in this space than someone laying out the number crunching within a quantum mechanics model. This stuff is sort of absent for a lot of the new age seekers, in my opinion, that they want to experience it. That's their validation. For me, I always remind people, if you're thinking you're not knowing, if you're knowing, you're feeling. That visceral feeling, your physicality is the barometer, the tuning fork to your reality. And so all this incredible, like, it's just, it's firing me up. It's getting me excited. The second you mention vibrational, I'm already out there. I'm playing with the stars, and I'm out of body right now. I tend to do that. I'm a little bit of a cheater. I do it most of the, probably 99% of my day is in that present moment of experiencing that and feeling that visceral, pulsating, oscillating, energetic potential. Because why not? Why wouldn't you, as you through your own admission, why wouldn't you want to feel this bliss all day long? I mean, without even having to quote unquote try. So please continue the conversation, because this is so important for all the people that are listening. And it gives people this incredible insight to their own journey, to give them the potential of change, potential of opening a gateway to something greater. And this is where these conversations become so potent, because they're visceral. Any students of mine, any disciples, any 126s, any subscribers, they watch these conversations I have with my guests because they're experiencing the whole energetic potential. They get high on it because it's so potent. It's potential.
Well, that's sort of where all of this was leading me. Everything was direct experience. It was like, I want to experience this, right? I don't want to just read about it and, read about someone else having this experience. I want to have it for myself. And even though I wasn't your typical spiritual seeker, that awakening just happened to me. I wasn't looking for enlightenment or self-realization. I didn't even know what it was until it happened. But then all of a sudden it was like, okay.
Isn't that the biggest slap, right? It's you're never looking, right? Just, most people are like, well, you get these people that are perplexed, and I'm sure you teach a lot of people that are stumped at the end of their road.
Yeah.
Right. My teachers 30 years ago, they were like on sideways. You channeled once, you channeled Latsu and energized the whole potential of basically this town. Forget about the city, the state, whatever. And you don't even do anything. You're a bodybuilder. What's going on here? And this is where people get frustrated. Instead of realizing, as through your own friend and a friend of mine, Tom Campbell would say, this is the large consciousness system giving you, with your own attention, intention, the potential of something greater, because this is your story. This is your reality. This is your creation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I only became a seeker once I had the experience, right? It was like, oh, God just woke up through me. It woke up, God experienced himself or herself through me. I was like, I want to have that again, right? So that's what led me then to want to keep going. I was like, okay, now I'm in a great space, but I know that there's more, and I'm gonna keep going till the end, right? So I kept going, and then that led me to the great Indian avatars. I came across Mother Meera. She's an Indian avatar, and Amma. And I was like, okay, so if this Shaktipat with this teacher was able to do that, I'm going to go see these people. So I went and I had darshan from Mother Meera. Knocked my socks off. I couldn't believe what was going on. Actually, even before I met her in person, she came to me in a dream. I had another lucid dream where she gave me darshan in the dream, and the next day I woke up. I actually couldn't function. I went into work. I opened up the shop. I had to close the door. I was like, I cannot deal with people. I lay on the floor laughing and laughing and laughing. I was like a madman. And I was like, there's something to this. There's something going on, and I'm just going to keep going. So I think about 2 years later, two or 3 years later, I then had another shift in awareness. I was meditating one morning, and I started inquiring about the nature of unity consciousness. And all of a sudden, I was shown a mug, and I'm just looking at this mug, and straight away the connection. The mug is the container for my consciousness. This is what's housing my consciousness. And then in the background, I seen prison bars. And I says, oh, and that's me being imprisoned, right? This is the container, and I'm imprisoned. And the mug started to be tapped on the prison bars. 1, 2, 3. And then all of a sudden, the coffee mug exploded, right? And there was a flash, like an explosion of white light in my mind. And it was like as if it was like a nuclear explosion, and it went into, the 4 corners of the universe, and everything went totally white, totally silent. And I was like, I knew what had happened, right? I was like, oh, this is a shift into unity consciousness. And then all of a sudden, everything came back in, um, came back in, and went quiet, really, really, really quiet. And I had shifted into unity consciousness. The boundaries that were keeping me inside my body were gone. I could now connect. I could feel everything around me. I felt like everything had become panoramic. It was like I was just sat there. There was no edges to me. I was my surroundings. I was everything. I also experienced a full Kundalini rising, where the Kundalini went all the way up into my brain. I experienced the crown chakra opened in 3 stages. First of all, it was like a little hole. Energy started flowing out. 2 weeks later, it broke open down to around my ears. It felt like there was gold, liquid honey coming down all around. And then a year later, it fully opened the whole way down. And I could actually even feel the lotus petals hitting my shoulders as they went all the way around. So it was quite a journey. Even though I went into unity consciousness, I still knew that there was more. I was like, there's still more. I'm going to keep going. And I mean, I had so many experiences that were coming up. I started being visited by the gods and the goddesses. So I had Krishna turned up one day, literally sat in front of me on my floor. It sat in the full lotus position, smiling at me. I had Kali turned up. I had Durga turned up. I feel that, I know exactly what Tom would say. It's just the larger consciousness system, showing up to give you, like a signpost of where you are on your journey. And funny enough, every time they would turn up, it felt like I had been given some sort of like spiritual gift. I think in India they call it a boon. Every time I would see one of these gods or goddesses, it was like I was different after seeing them. In 2002, I shifted into Brahman consciousness. My awareness shifted outside of creation into this no-thingness, so non-existence. I had been going into what's known as samadhi. This process had started to work its way into my system, where I was just going into samadhi every day. I would close my eyes. I would disappear for 90 minutes, 2 hours. And this was happening ongoing, daily, 2 or 3 times a day, pulled into meditation. And then eventually I sat to meditate one evening, and it was almost like I had stepped out in front of a juggernaut, right? I was about to die. I was about to be annihilated. And I was like, okay, I could have stopped it, but I was like, I have to go into this. So I went into it. I went into this non-existence. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I went and completely there was a lot of fear just as I was about to enter it. But once I went there, the fear went, and I was no longer a body. I no longer had an identity. I was gone. No experience. Whatever time had passed, I eventually started to feel my consciousness coming back in. The fear started kind of coming back. It was like, oh, what has just happened? Came back. The next night I sat to meditate, and I was faced with something similar but different. This time there was a different aspect of God or the universe. It was this cyan blue, what I can only describe as, it was like the mind of God. It was Krishna consciousness. So Krishna had turned up in the personal form, and he had this beautiful flavor, and he had a signature, right? And this cyan blue consciousness, it was the same. So I was like, oh, I said, that's why Krishna is blue. I said, he's a representation of that reality. So while I was there, again, it was having an experience through me. It wasn't me sitting there going, oh, I'm here. It was like I became it. It was like, oh, I am the mind of God. And I could think about myself back in reality, meditating and, thinking that I had awakenings. And I was like, well, how could there be something separate, in creation that thinks it's anything? So it just kept coming. All of these experiences kept coming. I then had another experience where the Divine Mother came and she experienced herself through my form. She was different again. And what I realized at the very top, there's a triad. There's what Tom would call AUO, right? He would call it the no time, where consciousness evolved out of, right? So I had the experience of that. I became that, right? And I changed. And when that experience happened, it was almost like I was now here, and part of my awareness was outside of creation, merged with this no-thingness. And it was like everything I was looking at was now an illusion. It was like nothing is real. Everything is just a projection on the screen of canvas. It was like everything is a canvas. And I know that if I peek behind that canvas, there's nothing. It's absolutely nothing behind there. So I had the Brahman, the mind of God, and then about 2 years later, the Divine Mother showed up, and the same thing again. She experienced herself through my form. She came in, and it was almost like she birthed galaxies through every single cell of my body. They were like exploding, orgasmic. It was like each cell would burst. It would go into an explosion. It was like, that's what a galaxy feels like when it comes into existence. And this went on for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I actually, it became so blissful that I begged her to stop, because I felt like it was going to kill me. My physical body was going to die if it kept going. So I guess that's up to the end point of my story.
Yeah, it's like what's that movie, When Harry Met Sally? I'll have whatever she's having. It really excites people when there's potential and it's been realized by someone else, and they're at the starting of their journey. They're sort of pondering or curious to know more, and they want to find what it is that they resonate with. From a Taoist perspective, this dukkha, as my dear friend the Buddhist monk Martin would say, is a distortion of the perfection of the mother. So everything is cut from that cloth, and you have this distorted reality that is coming from your attention intention, slowing down the very frequency that you're experiencing these things at through your own journey. And so, finding that would be equivalent to realizing that you're having this dialogue with these teachers that are coming in. And ultimately, from a Taoist perspective, they're a facet of the diamond, which is perfection. Yep. So they're facets, this dialogue that is the monologue of your reality, the present moment, which means you're first person, third person, no person. You're the now moment. You are all things. From a Taoist perspective, it would be the Wu Ji. As everything is a bellows, you're all things and nothing at the same time. And the secret source, the center point of all things, the Death Star moment where Luke hits the shot, is between the breath in and the breath out, which is between yin and yang, is the Wu Ji, the stillness, the mother of all things. And then you access that secret source, and all of a sudden now you're off to the races, baby. And that is what we call Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort, the flow, as Bruce Lee would call it. And, once you get there, of course, you're begging for forgiveness, as you put it through your own admission. I just needed it to stop. It was too much. And if it's too much, then it will be too much. But you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And it's never too much. It would just be can I have some more, please? Yeah. It's really, really powerful. And you're able to look at these things and see them from all different types of angles, right? And so you speak on these spirits coming in and they're giving you guidance, and from your own admission, maybe you could be a little bit clearer on that. They came over periods of time. Do
Yeah.
you access them on a daily basis? Are they available
No.
to you, that information? Oh, okay.
No. So they just turned up by themselves. They
Mhm.
just, I had no access. They would just turn up once. I mean, Krishna just turned up once, maybe twice, disappear. No way of accessing them again. Actually, the funny thing is, right, a lot of them turned up, and then towards the end, everything went quiet, right? So all the gods, all the goddesses, they all disappeared. I had all that flashy stuff. It all just faded away. I don't have access to it now. What happened was my consciousness in the Brahman shift, it went out of creation. And when I say outside of creation, I mean creation as our world, our non-physical reality, dream states, the gods, the goddesses, they're all within creation. When you reach Brahman, Brahman is the it's almost like primordial consciousness. It's outside of all of these, what Tom would call virtual realities. And when that happened, my consciousness got pulled out sort of like through a membrane, and I was sort of here and there simultaneously, right? So eventually, now it took a while, but eventually the soul then re-enters back into creation, comes back down, and it creates a channel, like a conduit for divine forces to come in. So what happened was I became transmissive. So the energy started to come through me. And that's part of what I do now. I sit and I meditate on Zoom with groups of people, and they have a direct experience of these states that I talk about through the energy. And I run retreats, and I also, because of the full Kundalini awakening, I then was able to give that initiation, the Shaktipat, where I could awaken the Kundalini life force in other people. So kind of
Yeah.
it I never wanted to be a teacher ever. It was just I had a
Not
successful
consciously in
business.
this lifetime. You
No,
if you look deeper, if you haven't even, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I mean, just a quick little sneak peek overview. You've done this hundreds of times, but hey,
well,
whether you're consciously aware of that or you look at that, I'm just looking at lives before this one. You've done it a lot, my friend, and it's weird because you do. That was the last thing on my mind entering this journey in this lifetime, consciously for 30 years teaching people internal alchemy. Now, from an observer's perspective, Kundalini could be equivalent to what we call the infinite Wuji body, which is an activation that would supersize or overshadow anything that most people consider an energetic awakening. And from that, you get to develop these internal alchemy skills, which we call Nidan, or moreover, what is called the internal power, Nigung. And so from that, you're able to operate in all dimensions at once, which is how I'm talking to you, and I'm moving through fairy dust transmissions from the sun, or entering into the middle of Earth, or playing with the constellations, or moving to the other side of the world and dropping into the middle of Pakistan and experiencing the depths of the Earth right now, because that's how fast these things start to materialize as you master these skills. And that's what I love about your admission and how you teach people, and you're using Shaktipat. A dear friend of mine, Brent Spirit, is a Kundalini, a guy that just always is on that Kundalini seeking path. I've been around the world. I've studied under a lot of different people. Most of my teachers, all of them actually, are from the primordial realm of perfection. So I have over 171 teachers I channel at will for facets of information. And that visceral experience will come in that form when you experience the transmission, which through your own admission, I imagine, not imagine, I sample it, I'm cheating. You feel it immediately, right? So there's a big difference when you're channeling, as you spoke on it, this channel of information. This is not like it's not from this world. It comes down like a beam through your physical body. It's not going to come up. It's not going to come from the side. It will be a deep transmission that saturates the physical flesh. And what mostly happens for myself whenever I channel Latsu, either I'm talking with him, having the dialogue, which I do all the time, which makes me look smart when I'm as dumb as rocks. That information is never mine. But if I just go, I'm going to have a concentrated channeling moment where someone else will experience the transmission, it's a very visceral thing where it's like, get out your stick and your marshmallow, and you can literally heat it up from the transmission that emits from the physical body, which is what you do. And so that stuff is sort of it becomes a master skill. Now, I may have cheated because I've done this over 1,000 lifetimes. And so when I hit it 30 years ago, it was instantaneous for me. And that's where people go, whoa, but you weren't even looking for it. No, I was not. I was not looking for it. It's so funny listening to your story. It's almost like a very similar journey. I kind of like had all the greatest hits inside of like 7 days of my initial journey in this stuff. And it levels up. Now, maybe perhaps through your own admission, this is not something that you continue. I maintain those relationships with all my teachers because they're just facets of information. I see them like I see you. They're very vivid. They're tangible. I hear them audibly, and it's a magical experience that perhaps I refuse to let go of that co-creative moment, and I enjoy it. I enjoy having that intimate relationship with the facets, the dialogue that gives me the monologue. Now, from your own admission, you're just sitting in the monologue and you're transmitting it, and you're altering people's at a subatomic level, which is, when you start to master this stuff, that's what you do. So, for the audience, this is sort of like attention intention. Gareth gets there. And through the transmission, that creates an energy. The energy has a vibration. The vibration has a frequency. The frequency, he has a resonance that he's sharing with all these people, which is really profound stuff. As you would put it, Shakupot, right? That's the transmission?
Yeah, there's a number of different transmissions that come through. There is a descending force that you are quite right. It's called Sat, truth consciousness, and it descends down through the top of the head. That comes in through me, and then the Shakti is a different type of energy. It awakens the life force in people. But yeah, it wasn't my first rodeo. As I was going through this awakening, my past lives started to be revealed to me. I had a past life in India where I had reached a very high stage of awakening. I had a life before that. I was actually back in Dublin, and I had somehow awakened back then in that life. And then I was shown another life. And then I was shown where I reside when I'm not in a body. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And I'm not a regular human. It's not... It's quite a unique place, and I was shown how time is very different there. Like 20 minutes of time there is 80 years, a lifetime here. So we come here for a lifetime. It has the feel of 20 minutes. So that's why we always we go, okay, well, it's only 20 minutes. Why wouldn't I jump back in for another life? But very quickly, you discover, as soon as you kind of go down that tube back into create, you're like, oh, it's another 80 years. I'm gonna have to learn how to walk and talk and do all that again. But I was shown all that. Yeah, I was shown how it works on the other side.
And that's a really interesting thing, because it is so... Our dear friend, once again, Tom, would say it's where you're at. It's like whatever you serves you up. I mean, a lot of the constructs of the Hollywood versions of out-of-body, near-death experience, things of that nature, are seeds to evoke something. But quite frankly, I've spent, after timing it, because it just disappears, 14 hours exploring 36 dimensions from this one. and it seemed like, as always, a minute or two. Yet that 14 hours, those 36 dimensions were amplitudes of phosphorus white light and complete void and darkness. And in the center is the Wu Ji. That's where you sprout off and go into any configuration of any sort of like realization that you choose to within that space. Now, again, that was my experience. That's generally the stuff that my teachers show me, but people will have a very detailed construct of what they consider their soul contract, their past lives, what they're doing here in this reality, how it is constructed past this veil of what you perceive as a 3D reality. This is all variables, and I think a lot of people get anticipation or expectations that are disappointed, and they're not happening the way that they want them to, because they're hearing a lot of these Hollywood stories that are not their story. And so then they want it so badly that the glimpse is they lose it. It's like, I got to grab it. I want it. And that's where I believe the method that you're teaching, that I've shared with people for a long time, is a way to obtain a repeatable experience that you can validate, that is an experience, that is a validation, that is your truth. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. What are your thoughts on that, having taught all this stuff?
Yeah, so early on, after my awakening, so I was like 2 years, having this self-realization experience, been completely free of suffering. I was no longer suffering, right? The suffering had stopped. My fear had fallen away. And my dad was going through a pretty hard time back then. And I would go down, I would sit with him, and I would try and talk to him, and I would try and explain what was happening in my system, and that this was available to everybody, right? But I just couldn't get through to him with words. So I was with Tom about 2019, I think, 2018, 2019. And at the very last night of the 5-day intensive with Tom, I went back to my room and I closed my eyes and I was meditating. And I said, what is Shakti? And all of a sudden, I started to notice that my calf muscle started tingling like crazy, almost like it was about to go into a spasm. I started shaking it. And I said, I closed my eyes again. I went, what is Shakti? What is that? What is that energy? And the same thing started happening again. And I was like, oh, they're trying to show me what that energy is in one condensed place, right? And I was like, okay, so that's what Shakti is. And I was like, okay, so can I give this experience to other people? I said, and I used my dad as an example. I was like, look, there's my dad. I said, no matter what I say to him, I can't get through to him. I said, but is there a way that I can give people a taste of what I'm experiencing? All of a sudden, and again, right, this might sound crazy, but it was like my heart stopped, right? My heart stopped beating, my head fell down, and my breath stopped. And it was like all of the life just left my body. And I was still there. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Am I having a heart attack? Should I move? And then I said, no, I'll just stay. And then all of a sudden, what felt like this big hand came in and started pushing down on my chest really, really heavily. I was like, I'm definitely having a heart attack. I was like, this is not good. But I stayed. And I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, I don't know how long it went on for, maybe a minute, right? Maybe no more than a minute. All of a sudden, the hand went away. And then the voice just internally, an intelligence said to me, it was now you can give your experience to other people. So that's basically what I do, right? It's like the best way to teach people is to give them a direct experience. And I do it. I've been doing it for 5 years now, where I have a free Zoom meditation every Tuesday and Friday. And it's open to everybody. Anybody can come. I don't look for any money. Just come, sit, meditate in the field. And it's grown. First of all, it was like 3 people. And there's now like 110, 120 people turn up from all over the world. And I mean, some people, right? It depends on your nervous system, right? You might just turn up, right? And you might go, okay, everybody's got their eyes closed. I'm not really feeling it. But I always say to people, keep coming, right? Even if you don't feel anything in the beginning, it's just your nervous system hasn't acclimatized yet. It hasn't become refined. Then all of a sudden you get people coming back going, well, you said to come back. I've been coming back for the last month, and now I'm feeling it. Now I'm having a direct experience. My own meditations, when I sit, I'm different. I'm changing. My consciousness is changing, and people started waking up. People started having spiritual awakenings just by sitting in the energy. It started having change on them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my goodness. I don't know. My largest setup was 1,000 people live, and you
Wow.
connect, and it's palpable. So I always tell people, come one, come all. You're going to get a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual transformation. And if you've got an ailment, a sickness, I mean, I don't need to tell you. You've probably seen it over 30 years. I've seen it all, and that's not a dismissal, because every time I see it, it's as if I saw it for the first time. Whether it's
Yeah.
some crazy thing that someone would think is superhuman, like watching bone fuse back together, tumors disappear, all that kind of stuff. This is just a state. And, you get to that place where you are basically the catalyst, and conduit. It's remembering. For me, I teach people, I share with people how to remember who they are. That's it. And
Yeah.
so that would be from your admission, the resonance that you're priming people with, and they move into it and go, holy crap, I remember this. Wow. Just like the charge you and I got right now. This is the admission of now. This is an amplitude, a chill, an excitement, this energy that is oscillating between us. This is what that means. And I would say to a lot of people, the developmental skills are important for the experiencer. Teaching them internal alchemy from a Taoist perspective, you get right down to physical healings, manifestation, magic being highly architectured versions of a manifestation, but it comes in very deep layered rituals that take things right down to the last dot. But these are all transmissions, deeper sort of ancient rituals. And once you resonate there, you can imprint things, and there's an incredible transformation that takes place for the user. And they're like, holy crap, I'm imprinting this space, from a Taoist perspective, we call it body dowsing. So you're able to identify vortices, power centers, all these sort of places where you can alter the environment, not just your universe, but everything around you. And of course, that resonance alters what this is, electromagnetic, spectrum of this 3D reality. There's going to be a polarizing effect. There's either things go one way or the other. What do you think?
Totally. So early on, I discovered we're almost like transistor radios, and we can dial into different frequencies. So just for example, when I was sitting meditating with these teachers, I was like, wow, I can tap into that person's field, right, when I'm sat here with them. So I was like, why can't I do that at home? So I would go home and I would go, okay, let's see if I can tap in. So I started meditating, and then I would put my attention on that one particular teacher. And it was almost like I was dialing the old transistor, radio, getting the dial, and all of a sudden I would click onto them. And I was like, oh yeah, now I've hit them, right? And I was like, I can do this with pretty much any of them, right? So then I would dial it back up to this other teacher, and then the energy would change. And I was like, okay, so if I can do that with living teachers, can I do that with past saints, gurus who have died? So I started going to Ramana Maharishi. I actually even went to Lao Tzu. I went to Jesus. I dialed into all of them, and they all had their own unique flavor that I could tap into. And so basically it's the one source manifesting through the different, almost like the if you take a stained window, right, it's the one source of light coming through, but there's different colors, And that's what we are. It's just the one energy moving through us. It has its own unique flavor. Yeah, each teacher has its own unique flavor.
Yeah, I think that, that's a great way to look at it. And it's a priming. It's a priming to create the infrastructure so that you are able to receive, you're able to transmit. And that's in my opinion, yes, I'm a fanboy. I'm an ordained priest in 2 lineages of Taoism. Yes, okay. I did it the easy way. I got the refresher immediately, and then I went and decided to delve deeper into the spiritual aspect. But in essence, the infrastructure, the alchemy, Taoist alchemy is second to none in my opinion. Now, Kundalini, I've come across 3 masters of Kundalini in my lifetime, and those 3 were the only 3 that I've ever seen levitate before my very eyes. And that's a state of cultivation. And normally, through their own admission, they go deep into it. I've never got that excited. I can envelop my forearm and run a skewer through it and pull it out, and you won't see a entry or exit point. But there's a certain point, and I think this is something you might want to share with the audience. You get to these states of paranormal, superhuman experiences. They're very exciting, but I get all warm and fuzzy about things like physical healing, mental, emotional healing, spiritual healing. That gets me excited, as opposed to,
Me too.
infusing or chi packing my body. And you could take a baseball bat and run it, swing it at my gut, and I'm not going to feel anything. That is the kind of stuff that is an internal alchemy practice that you benefit from to level up the ability to move this electromagnetic spectrum. So you can separate the electric from magnetic. And, that's that charge that we're getting right now, that chill up the spine. This is that realization, because guess what? When you're there and what you're playing with. So you're going to be subject to the emotional content of duality as long as you're here, right? So until that fearlessness is present, until you realize your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions, which a lot of people get twisted about. They go, what is that? Well, this is, again, an experience, and your ecosystem of the universe is slightly distorted. That's why you have emotional expressions. To create the harmony, you go to events where you regulate and tune your universe. So it's now a mirror of the mother. The mother is now it. You're the micro of the macro type of thing. I would love you to share more on that, because I find a lot of people, I've channeled the Palladians, I feel energy, I'm good. And then I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. Now, if anyone understands the deep nature of Taoist magic is hinged on your limitation of this duality. What does that mean? It means that it feeds on the infrastructure of your emotional content. So if you are emotional, you will be suggestible. What are your thoughts on that?
So, yes, and again, right, we're talking about all of these kind of cities. I think in the Hindu philosophy, they call them city, these magic powers that turn up.
Yeah.
I don't really have any of them, right? I can't levitate, or I can't manifest gold out of my mouth, or like some of these Indian saints can. I can't do it. Can't do it. All I wanted to master was the self. I wanted to master the self. And when I changed me and my reality, everything else changed around me. So that was it, right? It was like, I cannot go and change people. I need to just change me. And by me working on me awakening, that's the biggest gift that I can give to the universe, right? Because it's like, we are transmissive, right? And as soon as we change and we awaken, people around us start to awaken, right? There's like been studies done where where they would put TM people in certain neighborhoods, and they would start meditating, and the level of crime would go down just by these people being there meditating regularly in the neighborhoods. The crime rates would drop. So I guess for me, it was always self-mastery, master the self, master my emotions. And what I did notice was that straight away, right, the first thing that disappeared for me was fear. My fear was gone. When I woke up, fear was gone. There was still anger there. There was still other, like, you know, the kind of the lower human emotions were still there. But over time, they just got less and less. Anger started to disappear, resentment, you know, greed, lust, all of them things started to disappear. And I mean, like when that starts to disappear, it's just like, wow, there's a freedom here, right? I don't need anything on the outside world. I don't need, you know, I don't need entertainment. I don't need consumption, alcohol. So I mean, that was my alchemy, was changing my inner world, and then my outer world changed. I don't know if I'm answering that though. Am I?
Yeah, no. I mean, a lot of people will come to me and they're like, I want to learn the Taoist alchemy because it's sexy, whether it's sex magic, just basic magic, right? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, what I need you guys to start to embody is you realize you're in this servitude. And they're like, no, Jifu, I want to start with, getting the energy and cultivating it and transmitting it and moving it. And I'm like, when you realize that self-mastery, just as you're through your own admission, the self-mastery is servitude. It's the selflessness that you come to that uki-biki point of higher resonance. And a lot of people tend to think that they're moving towards this, I want to just work on myself. But in actuality, you're doing it all for the humanity raising of consciousness that is a collective thing. And a lot of people
yes.
miss that, I think. What do you think?
Yeah. So I totally agree. Earlier, again, from me meeting with a lot of people, right? A lot of people, they'll come and they want to have flashy experiences, right? They want to have the out of body experiences. They want to be able to heal. They want to be able to manifest. Early on, I discovered that, okay, these things are great. They can happen, right? Brilliant. Enjoy them. But they can also be a big distraction, right? Because when I was having my out of body experiences, right, it was profound. It changed my outlook. I was like, there's a larger reality, there's a larger consciousness system. But there was no spiritual progress. There was no spiritual maturity from having them experiences. Nothing, absolutely nothing. My ego has been elevated. My ego has been inflated from having these flashy experiences. Everything, all the real work for me happens in the body, in relationship, in dealing with people who I meet, students, brothers, sisters, friends, talking, relating in my human physical form. That's where I found the rubber met the road.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to agree. It's that self-realization. And it's very exciting, your awareness of greater sense of knowing the nature of reality. And I'm not dismissing it because everyone will have their own journey to that point. And
Mm.
but the bigger picture is, and a lot of my students end up going, oh, when you're in service to others, you're in service to yourself.
Yeah.
Jiffer, sign me up. I want it. No. Now I know what you're talking about. I'm into it. I want to get it done. I want to get cultivating. I want to get, and it's sort of like understanding this. And this is where you get caught up in it because people will not tap in. You see, I get attorneys, judges, accountants, light workers, energy workers, Reiki, doctors, medical doctors, functional. They all come to the same conclusion that they're interested in helping and healing people, yet their mastered skill is not enough, and so they go looking for something that returns them to the truth, which is everything is energetic potential. That's all it is. Light to wave to matter to particle. That's the truth. And when you tap into that, you can actually harness like the 50 trillion cells within an alchemical process. You can now start moving that ecosystem, which is a representation of the micro of a macro. And then you can start really affecting the raising of consciousness, which helps people return to this embodiment. For a Taoist, it's being an ambassador to planet Earth. All this experience that you're having is happening in every little subatomic particle of what we perceive as the universe, the mother, and it's happening on every planet. There are ambassadors to those planets, to the stars, to all those things. And we happen to be here enjoying this as ambassadors to humanity to raise that. And as our dear friend Tom would say, love is the answer. The
Love is the
selfless
answer.
servitude is the answer. And some people are like, oh, but Jifu, I just want to, embody energy and heal people. And I never dismiss that, because when you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. And this has created the seed of curiosity. People come to this idea, oh my goodness, well, this excites me. I want to go down this path. This message of whatever it is, whether it's what you're sharing, what I'm sharing, it doesn't matter, as long as it helps someone return to that truth, that truth of who they are, knowing who they are through that experience. Would that sound something similar to how you share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, right? I mean, what's the point in one of us getting this awakening, right? Having the awakening, the enlightenment, and then keeping it to ourselves, right? It just defeats the purpose, right? The larger consciousness system, as Tom would say, its mission is to evolve, is to become love, right? And we are its parts, right? So, I mean, if we just get this and we go, okay, I got it, therefore I'm fine, I'm going to keep it to myself. That's not what it's about, right? All of its parts have to awaken to itself. All of its parts have to move into that state of love. And that's what I feel I'm definitely doing, because I mean, I never wanted to be a teacher. I'm more of an introvert person. I'm not, I don't like groups of people. I don't like putting myself out there. But I noticed that the universe pushed me into this. It was like, I had skills, and the universe was like, okay, we're going to put you there because we know you're going to work hard. You've got a good heart. You're going to help people. And it just started that way. And what I've noticed is there's people that I've worked with who are now doing the same thing. They start to awaken. They go off to wherever, their little corner of the world. They have their own little groups. And the same thing starts happening. And now with the power of internet and I mean, we can connect with one another. You're thousands of miles away. We can have this great conversation. It's put up on YouTube for thousands of people to watch. I mean, it's just speeding the whole process up.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree 1000%. I mean, there's that limitation that people put on themselves by, this is my favorite football team and my football team is better than yours. This is the limitation. If you're looking to have the floodgates, as my dear friend E from Why Dharma channel would say, being done by the Tao, to be done is this present moment. That present moment is the only access point, the Death Star moment. That's the center point of all things. And that's how you obtain, profound moments of transmission from yourself, healings, awakenings. That's that frequency that is the resonance. And so when you resonate there, wow, okay, wow, that is profound. That is a profound moment, and it shifts someone. They're never the same. I always give people a little guideline whenever they're in a transmission experience. Always give themselves at least 72 hours to adjust to their new frequency, because that is a new frequency. And I don't know about you, but being a polarizing duality that we're in the experience of, that frequency becomes so high that you have that effect where people either love you or hate you. And that sounds really strange. And people are like, hang on a second, Jifu, you're a priest. How could someone hate you? Well, I also have a personality and I can switch in and out of that at will. So I like Netflix, chocolate, driving my side by side at 100 miles an hour in the middle of the desert. I enjoy all these things, but you need to realize that when you enter that frequency and someone, as you put it through your own admission, the nervous system is not primed yet, they're going to have effects of your presence as something that would fundamentally irritate them and look at you going, that person, I don't like them. Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Well, what is that going to? That's their stuff. Have you experienced things like this before?
Totally, totally. And funny enough, I was like, what is going on? And I know what's going on right now. I know what's going on. It's like that your frequency is churning their system, and
Right?
they don't like it. It's
No.
churning them. It's bringing up their stuff. So I mean, the energies can have such a profound and positive effect on people who are ready, right? You know, people. But if people come of their own accord and they sit and they want to meditate and they want to progress and have awakenings and deeper conscious states of consciousness, that's great. But the people who don't and find themselves in your company, the energies can actually do the opposite. They can bring up their stuff. They can start going, oh, I don't like that person. I don't know why I don't like them, but I just don't like them. And I see it happen. And I always, funny enough, on my retreats, I always tell people that the energies are going, it's like they're going to percolate, they're going to get down into your system. They're going to, it's almost like you're shining a light on places where light hasn't shone in a long time, right? And there's creepy crawlies in there. And as soon as you start lifting things up, that light starts, the creepy crawlies start coming up, right? They start moving around, they start being noticed. They've not been looked at. They've been suppressed for decades, years and years. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is your fault. Or it could be someone else on the retreat. All of a sudden it's like, I don't like that person. But it's really nothing to do with anyone outside of themselves. It's their own stuff. It's just the energy is moving that stuff. It's bringing it up for them to sit with. So it definitely
And
happens. I can.
well, and what would you say to someone? You give them a primer, or you give them a disclaimer.
Yeah.
You didn't mention. Did you ever have anything that sort of felt like you had to deal with a lot of your, as you put it, your own stuff? Did you have any moments like that?
Mm. So funny enough, right? I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot. I mean, as I was coming up to the unity consciousness, I found myself, a friend of mine, he was a student of an Austrian teacher called Thomas Hubel, and he's a psychotherapist, right? Spiritual psychotherapist. And he gifted me 10 sessions. He was like, look, I need to get a certain amount of hours. So I would sit with him once a week and we would talk. And he was amazing, amazing guy. He's still doing his great work. And I was like, well, what's going to really come up by me talking about, stuff? And all of a sudden, there was stuff, about abandonment was coming up, about issues with my mom as a kid, and yeah, I mean, there was definitely, it was almost like this stuff had to come up in order for me to go through my awakening. I also remember going to see Amma. Do you know who Amma is? The Hugging Saint. Um, very, very famous Hugging Saint. She's from India. She goes around the world, big lady, and she hugs thousands of people. I went and I received a hug from Amma and had an amazing day. That evening, I went home, and the smallest little thing triggered me, and I had this almost like a temper tantrum. And I found myself storming out of the house, driving off, going, I'm never going back to that house, shaking, and I pulled in a half an hour later on the side of the road, and I was like, oh, I was there going, this is me when I was 17. This is the feelings that I had when I was living at home with my parents, arguing with them, having temper tantrums. I was there going, this never went away. This has always been in me. And by me being in this woman's company, her energy has brought this up. And it came up and it didn't feel very nice. And I just, I sat with it for a few hours and it subsided. And eventually I went home with my tail between my legs. And it went, yeah. Like, and all of these things, you can never avoid them. You can't meditate your way out of, your traumas and your triggers. You just have to be with them. So uh, even though I didn't have a lot of them, I had enough awareness to know that I had to be with them and acknowledge them and just sit with them and yeah, let them kind of transmute themselves naturally by feeling
Yeah,
them, by feeling them. Yeah.
yeah. I had a crash course. It only happened once. It was just like get it over and done with. I had 5 days of every thought, feeling, and emotion happening at once, and I
Mm.
honestly was going to end my life. I was like, that's just too much. I was distracting myself going into a movie theater, and the second a woman's naked body came on the screen, you're a man, a hot-blooded man, you'd be like, oh, that's exciting. I threw up in front of on the person in front of me. It repelled me. It was a physical reaction to the whole event. And that was, after I finally got hold that, this is way back in the day, so we're talking 30 years ago. So we had rotary phones. By the time I got hold of my teacher, they're like, oh, that's amazing. I can't believe how incredible that is. You had all this stuff. This is so incredible. And I'm like, no, that was horrible. I don't wish that on anybody. And so some people might coin it within a spiritual reality as, what do you call it? A dark night of the soul type of experience where you're having to experience this stuff. Now, through my own teaching, I always remind people you can have 9 cycles of that within an incarnation. Now, personally, I had all of them at once for this incarnation, and I'm good to go. Yet it happens where, I've had students that have had a dark night of the soul for 5 years. And I'm like, okay, we could potentially smooth out a few things to make it a much more pleasant landing, rather than just perpetuating the same thing over and over again, because you're attaching it to a place, person, or thing and stuffing it right back down, and it doesn't get realized. It just becomes more physical. It becomes more a manifestation that will transmute itself. And so I think that you had a really you gave yourself you were very lenient on yourself in this lifetime. Good for you. And
so I had something similar as well towards the end. I had something similar for about 5 days where it felt like I was feeling everything. And I had to distract myself with Netflix. I started exercising just to keep myself grounded. It was like I would get into bed or pull the covers over my head. It just felt like everything was moving through my system at the same time. Every emotion I could feel was coming through. So yeah, I know what that felt like.
Yeah, just absolutely wouldn't wish that on anybody, because it's not. And I was unassuming because I wasn't expecting anything. And I think that's where a lot of the things that you and I have that are similar is there wasn't an expectation. And when there's no expectation, the incredible realization is really this return, this profound, expansion, which, is basically what we're doing. We're expanding and contracting all at the same time. You're all and nothing at the same time. It's like you have a choice. As our dear friend Tom Campbell would say, consciousness is you realize you have choices. And I mean, that is the glass half empty or full? From a Taoist perspective, it's just yin and yang. Good and evil is only generated by the energetic potential of the individual, the person that is experiencing that. So it doesn't come in the form of good or evil. Now, yeah, sure. I one of my right, and one of my lineages, the specialty for that ordination was exorcisms, and sure, I'd do exorcisms for 6 months, a couple of years, and then I wouldn't see them for 10 years. And so you get a lot of things like entity-wise. When I look at someone's aura, I'm seeing more aliens now present in this experience right now than I've ever seen before in 30 years. I've never seen as many aliens as I see now. So when
ETs.
Well, yeah, sure. If whatever you want to call them, I guess they're I just call them aliens, extraterrestrial. It's really weird because I just look part of I don't know about your clairsenses and how that turned on. For me, it was an overnight thing where everything had it was like markers, information, auras, all of it turned on at once, and it was an overload that was part of that experience. And then I was able to master it where I put my intention, I can then get all the information. So when I'm reading someone's aura, I just go through the energy centers we call dantians, and it gives me the energetic, emotional content of that person physically, mentally, emotionally. And then people are like, how the hell do you do that? That you don't even know me. I've never met you before. How did you? And it's just information. I'm not invested in you validating that I'm the next coming of Jesus or I'm the greatest psychic in the world. When you just accept and receive the information at that present moment, it's there. What are your thoughts on?
So early on when I started having the out of body experiences, again, I got a lot of psychic phenomena started opening up. Third eye opened. I could see future events. Lots of lucid dreams. I would just know things, right? I'd be driving home and I'd go, oh, there's going to be a police checkpoint around the corner. I'd get around the corner, there would be one. It all opened up and then it closed down. And now I just sort of have a sense, a feeling. I feel everything. I just feel and I know. So I don't get information the way you do or like Tom does. I mean, I've been around Tom. I hadn't seen Tom in a long time, and I'd been on the retreat with him in Lumley Castle, and everybody was off doing one of the meditations, and I decided I wasn't going to. I was having a cup of tea, and Tom walked by. And I walked over to Tom and I said, "Oh, hi, Tom." I said, "Do you remember me?" And he, I don't know how many thousand people he's seen in the 7 years where I'd seen him previously, and it was almost like he kind of looked at my name tag, and then I could see his eyes widening, and it was like as if he went into my being and grabbed all the information about me, came back, like my knees nearly went weak when he did it. Like I could feel that the saucer and the teacup in my hand were almost shaking. I was like, oh God, what's happening there? And he's like, Gareth, he goes, I remember you. How's your dad? And he knew everything about me. And he was just able to go in, get that information, come back, and then he knew it. Can I do it? No, I don't have them abilities. They didn't stay around for me. Why? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just it's a method for a Taoist seeker. It's just we train people in these methods. They're just methods, and once you understand how to activate that alchemy, it's a method that you can repeat over and over and over again. It's not something that has to be mystical or a non-starter. And in through your own admission, maybe it's something that doesn't excite you. It's like things excite certain people. It's not something that you gravitate to, so it's not something that you need. You get everything you need for what you want to experience and share with the world. And I feel like a lot of people have this expectation that, well, I need it this way. Well, I always remind people that is potential, and it is absolutely possible. These internal alchemy practices from a Taoist perspective are very, very method-based, and you follow the training and you get the result. And maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe they want a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They want something else. And that's perfectly the perfect thing for them and their journey and their recipe of what their experience is supposed to be. And I think a lot of people, and I think we're getting back to that energetic potential, which we briefly brushed over, which is what I find a lot of people come to me. And the first red flag I like to share with people is when you finish your day and you tell yourself you're exhausted, there's something going on there. So we need to now examine what is it that you're doing, because your attention, intention, whatever it is, the old expression, sell your soul. If you, whatever job you have, you are pouring your life force into it. It doesn't matter whether you're a judge, a janitor, a guru, an energy healer, and until you're able to sustain this physicality and realize that that is not the potential, the mother is the potential, and you access that, so you're never accessing your life force, you'll always be exhausted, and you'll literally burn your candle at two ends. I think that's part of probably the training you share with people to help people understand they can access it. Or what are your thoughts on that? That's what I
totally agree. Yeah. Early on, when I started doing the transmissions, I noticed that I would get tired. I noticed that I would actually pick up stuff from the people. I was like, oh, I just did a session with some people. I don't feel good. It would take me 2 days to recover. I was giving away my life force. I was, sitting here had done all this great work, had built up all this energy in my system, and I was now squandering it, sending it out. And it wasn't until I discovered that I could tap into like a universal supply that never runs out, right? It never, I could fill a stadium with the energy, and it has no effect on my physicality. So yeah, I totally agree that yes, we can squander our own energy, definitely.
And a lot of people aren't familiar with it. So that was one thing that I always help people realize, and I offer to them the potential to being able to see, sense, know what it is that your as you would say, work with, play with, however it is, because we can turn the lights off and you can sit in a room and I can hand you what you perceive as a clump of clay. I turn the lights on and it's actually dog shit. There is a potential when you're not in a knowing state for yourself to fall subject to this dualistic good and evil stuff. And when you do that, you lead yourself into, as you put through your own admission, I picked something up, I did something. There's like this need to protect. The question is do you, is the seeker aware that I am you, you are me? So what are you afraid of? As that one source of that mother, as that monologue, that is really important. But if people are tiptoeing through the tulips with this protective mindset, you will be subject to the effects of that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally. So the same again, this kind of like working with people and being energetically attacked or attachments, all that kind of stuff early on. Yeah, I would know. I would be like, oh, something. And it was almost like I would have a little bit of fear about working with certain people. I'd be like, oh, I really don't want to go through that again. I need to protect myself. I would have little rituals, sage myself. And I was like, it's just, this is no use. I can't keep working like this. I need to figure out a way for me to like basically the force that comes out almost like a reservoir, right? That it's coming out at such a high rate that nothing can travel back up. And I just kept seeing myself going up further and further, becoming the light, being up in that light. And then eventually, like, nothing can reach me up here. Nothing, no negativity, nobody's crap can touch what I am. And then all of a sudden my work just became beautiful. I wasn't being put in bed for 2 days after having an energy come back up the cable to me. It just stopped happening. It just stopped happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's that construct and stepping out of and realizing that you are this now moment. And that comes from remembering. And that selflessness turns into the ability to access, as you said, this universal energy. For a Taoist, it's the mother. It's just the now moment. And, Tom and I had this, you might want to listen to this one when I publish it, because we go over a lot more esoteric stuff, his, channeling and a lot of deeper things that most people don't notice. I see
he doesn't talk about it. Yeah.
I see auras and energies. So, we just went there because it's stuff that I can see, and it's like through his own admission. People don't realize he's doing it all day long. His intuitive is doing it all day long, and a lot of people won't even realize he's doing it. But when you see the energetic potential, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow. Because to face value to most people, oh, he's just this really amazing teacher that just gets you there. And there's so much depth to his mastery. And, it's a mastery, just like anything. And I think that, through his own admission, it's like, and I said to Tom, I'm like, we have this conversation for 3.5 hours. I don't move. Neither of us move. Neither of us go to the bathroom. Neither of us, we're just here having a conversation, and we walk away more energized. And it's like, he goes, I'll be standing on a podium for 7 hours. And people are like, are you okay? Do you need a seat? He's like, no, I'm perfect, because it's the energetic potential. And when you understand how to access it, it's abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And
Yeah.
that this is the exciting realization. And I think you, my dear friend, are an incredible breath of fresh air from my perspective, because I'm always welcoming these incredible conversations and having an insight and a mastery of what it is that you do to share with others and help them remember who they are. Yeah. Well, I think you're probably coming to the end of your time spent.
It's been
I
great, Sam. Thank you.
I really, really appreciate you coming on today, and I'm really grateful that you're able to share. And what I want my students, disciples, 126s, subscribers, everyone to come and check out your channel, check out your teachings, your offerings, and go and get a deeper insight to the mastery. And of course, sample the potential just in this conversation. It's like, try it before you buy it, and you got it right there. It's happened. It's now. And
Yeah,
so,
the
would you like to
energy.
share? Go ahead.
So I was just going to say that it's not just a conversation, right? There's an energy flow, and we're sat here talking. I mean, it's been coming in since the moment we turned on our screens. It's been flowing, and that stays in the conversation. So even people who are accessing this talk, months and years down the line, you can still close your eyes, listen to the words, and feel into the energy that's behind the words. It's still stored in this recording.
It's imprinted into this very moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere. It just becomes even more palpable as more people invest their intention to the conversation and listen, and then they feel it, and it amplifies, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I will have one call. Is there anything you want to share with the audience before we close it out here today?
I mean, look, they're all welcome to come and do my Zoom meditations every Tuesday and Friday, totally free. We meditate for about an hour and 10 minutes. The recordings of them also go onto my YouTube channel, which is True Spiritual Awakening. You can just go onto my channel, pick one of the videos, sit there, meditate with them. You can tap into the frequency. And then if you wanted to access my full story, I wrote a book. It's called God, what did I waking up from the dream, and that's on Amazon. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic, my dear friend.
Yeah.
In closing, I have one last question. What's your definition of consciousness?
I mean, consciousness is just what we are. We are consciousness. It's just our awareness. The fact that we exist is we are conscious. Consciousness is not taught. It's definitely not taught, even though there can be taught in consciousness. Consciousness is not defined by thought. Just because we think, I think that's saying I think, therefore I am. I think that one is slightly wrong. I think they got that.
Other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah. Well, again, perfect answer. I've done hundreds of these podcasts, and I've never heard the same answer. It's always the perfection of that present moment. I want to thank you again, my dear friend, for sharing your time with us today. It was a real pleasure having you.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you so much.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, San.